Shall we begin?
You are now listening to an altogether less fashionable variety of soccer podcast. Broadcasting live from the capital city of Columbus, Ohio. Welcome to
ACES Radio.
I got the new wings with the Zima flavor sauce.
I've given this no thought whatsoever.
Hashtag probably riding cock.
They're in your face. They're a little different. I think it's super cool. I love them. Jamie, ignorant slut.
Hold on to your butts.
Now, here are your hosts.
Not Morgan Hughes. Rest.
John Zadar. And Darby Schnarpus.
No! Greetings, edgelords, shitlords, and bezlords. If you're listening to this, you made that same mistake. You keep making that same mistake. For 155 episodes, you have been listening to the trash pocket known as ACES Radio. Good afternoon, evening, morning, whenever the hell it is you're listening to this. We're here on Thursday night, one of those kind of eventful days where everything happens on a Thursday. But before we get into the meat and potato of soccer and all things crew, let's check in with everybody. Brent, how are things with our favorite Buckeye from Muskogee?
First of all, Drabs, you know that I would prefer to not be labeled as a Buckeye.
Right. Right. You're an Iowa Hawkeye.
I would take that over Buckeye. That's fair. Things are good. I will be home for a short break in the middle of the month at some point. So coming up pretty soon here. So yeah. I gotta say, you guys
licked
are
all the masks.
Yes, absolutely.
You're all caught up.
We're almost. Yep. We're pretty well caught up. I gotta say, you guys are kind of lucky because I was about to go down to the pool. It was like, it's 6 o'clock. I'll go down to the pool for 20, 25 minutes and then come back up and leave myself enough time to clean up before the show. And then I was like, wait a minute. 6 o'clock is actually 7 o'clock there. It's time to go now. So there was almost a potential situation there, just so you guys are aware.
I'm glad that after, 3 months at this point, you finally figured out the time zone difference. Congratulations.
Well, I don't have to think about the time zone difference that often, Darby. It doesn't really come up that much.
What was the potential situation going to be?
I almost went down to the pool right at the time that we were going to start recording.
No, yeah, I got that. Why is that an issue?
Because without me, this show would suck ass, John.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page here.
Yeah. So, do you have a supply of canned beverages to take with you to the pool these days? Are you keeping stocked up for all of your meth-fueled contagion parties?
I actually do currently have a 6-pack of an Irish red ale in the fridge right now, so pretty well stocked.
Let's revisit that real quick, because we all know from Twitter that you are somebody who believes that pumpkin spice season is from March 1st through November 1st. And then you instantly switch into Christmas beer season, November through the following February. So why are you drinking an Irish ale in what is clearly the middle of your pumpkin spice season, you basic bitch?
Drabs, if you had any reading comprehension at all, you would know that I don't actually like pumpkin spice. I just think it's ridiculous that other people like to gatekeep when people can enjoy a thing. If somebody wants to enjoy pumpkin spice outside of the month of October, they should not be shamed for doing so.
What are your thoughts on that?
I gotta agree with Brent. I think we're at the. I'm full team. Don't yuck other people's yums.
How dare you both? While I agree with that sentiment in principle, pumpkin spice is trash and should always be mocked. There is no acceptable time of the year. Pumpkin spice is an abomination against humanity, and it should be gathered up and shot into the sun, probably by a Pedro Santos kick from 20 yards from goal.
Man, it's a really brave stance for you to publicly denounce something so strongly, knowing perfectly damn well what happens to people who do that on this show.
This is true.
Charles
basically...
and everybody else that's listening, you know what to do, and you know that if you need his address, you just slide to my DMs and I'll hand that over.
Oh, great. This is the new waffle maker of the podcast. Fantastic. All right, John, how are you doing, my friend? What's new in your life?
Hang on, I'm answering DMs. People are already interested.
That's fantastic because we're recording and there's no way for them to have heard that yet.
Oh, man, I'm doing pretty good. I got no complaints. I'm still healthy. So is everybody that I seem to care about, as far as I'm aware. I had a sad/frustrated moment earlier today when I was lamenting all of the things that I've been missing as far as spending time with people, because my cousin's she's getting married this weekend, and of course I'm not going to be able to be in attendance for that, but otherwise I'm good. I got a couple projects I was working on this week, so finally feels good to be back working, even if it's just for short term, but yeah, I got nothing to complain about.
So are you drawing somebody like one of your French girls then?
You know that is what I do, Darby. I do specialize exclusively in nudes, yeah.
I've been meaning to thank you, by the way, for that 15-panel nude that you did of me recently. It looks really great down in the basement.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome. Actually, it was that project that caused your mother to get in contact with me, and she's going to have me do a live session with her when she's here next week.
Oh, my God. I can't believe you've done this.
Wait, the real question is, was he able to fit the horse in the background of your painting?
That's why it was like 8 panels, Brent.
I'm sorry, no,
okay.
It's 50. Right. It was just one panel
sure.
That's my body, and then 14 panels worth of penis, basically.
Horse penis, yeah.
I don't know what one of those looks like, John. I'm sorry.
They usually mount you from behind, do they?
The fuck on, dear sweet God. Why does this always happen to me?
How are you doing, Darby? Other than the past 2 minutes of nonstop roastings that you just received.
Up until about 7 p.m. tonight, I was doing pretty all right. No, it's been a very uneventful week. I have not been attacked by any kamikaze squirrels, so nothing like that going on. It's been one of those just sort of you hunker down and you look up at one point and you're like, oh shit, it's Thursday again. When did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the highlights of this week were that I bought a Van Halen live album that's probably 20 years old on Amazon. Yeah, because, when you get this deep into the quarantine, you start making those really poor life decisions just on that, you know what, I remember I had this album once and I liked it, and so I downloaded it again. Just
had to get it again, huh?
Yeah. Yeah,
you purchase music still, do you?
Yes, I'm not a streamer boy. I don't.
So you don't stream at all. All the music you listen to, you own.
Well, I stream it in the sense that like I'll upload it into Google Play, which is about to become YouTube Music, I think. And then I will stream my own music.
Right. But it's not like I exclusively listen to music via my Spotify subscription. You're not doing that. You're buying actual albums and keeping a digital catalog, and that's how you do it, right?
Yeah, there's too much pressure in having access to all the music in the world, because then I would have decision paralysis and I'd never listen to anything. Like, I need to just be limited to the things that I purchase. That's the only way I can decide.
I understand that. I don't run into that with music, but I don't listen to music very often. So, but I do have I do run into a similar thing with podcasts. I'm probably like subscribed to like 40 some podcasts, but I typically am only listening to like 5 or 6 any given time. So,
yeah, no, I can't handle it. So I got to go this route. And that means that whereas some people are paying like $8 a month for music, then I'll just I probably spend, I would guess on average, either me or Kristen is buying an album a month. She's the household playlist curator for like, mini tailgate gatherings and such. So
now, when you say purchasing, are you actually still buying physical product? Are you getting a CD, or are you just buying the digital? Okay, just the digital.
No, yeah, I'm still annoyed. In fact, I got one of those like, oh, you bought tickets to a concert, back before the world went to shit. Here's an album that you get as a part of your purchase, and oh, by the way, yes, it's a physical CD. And I'm like, great, what the fuck do I do with this now? We do have an external like optical drive that we can plug in, but it took us about an hour the other day to find the power cord for it. So
that's funny. Yeah, I'm very much of the opinion now that I'm probably never going to buy music ever again, with the odd exception of actual records, actual vinyl albums, because I do have a record player. But yeah, I think it's funny that that's kind of where we've transitioned. We've transitioned away from physical media to digital media, and then now we're kind of like, well, we'll make exceptions for physical media if it's this one very retro-y hip kind. Right.
Yeah, no, I have no interest in the whole like vinyl world. I don't need to store big ungainly things anymore if I can. I mean, I just put a 256 gig micro SD card in my phone with the anticipation of, oh yeah, this should literally store every picture I'll ever take for the rest of my life and every song I ever buy for the rest of my life.
You say that now until you have to upgrade your phone and they only offer phones that take 4K photos and shit like that.
Well, yeah, that's probably true. All right, lads, should we go ahead and talk about soccer for a change?
If we must.
Probably not.
Okay, cool. So we actually have 2 games to recap from the past week since we last spoke. The first one being an absolutely riveting game against the Fightin' Fusslads of Fightin' Cincinnati Football Club Soccer Club, which resulted in a 0-0 tie. Do either of you have thoughts worth discussing in general about this game? We've got a couple of talking points, but just if you have any impressions or whatever, feel free to toss them out about this absolute shit show.
I have nothing of length to comment on, but I will just simply say that that is an unacceptable result, and this team is showing that it's incredibly stout on defense, which is fantastic, but it's also showing that it is seems like it's fairly easy to shut them down on offense, and that is going to be a real issue if they have aspirations for winning things or just performing in the long run as they have thus far this season. So Cincinnati is a team that if you're a legitimate contender, you need to be able to put away, whether it's home or whether you're on the road or at home. 0-0 draws are not going to cut it and not acceptable.
Sure. Any thoughts, Brent?
Not a whole lot more to add. I figured this game would feel disappointing by the end, feel like a letdown. I did not anticipate it feeling like this much of a letdown. Yeah, John hit the nail on the head. It's unacceptable. It can't happen again.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. It's, it is great that there was another shutout, although one would argue that you should shut out a team like Cincinnati, even on the road, because we're in an era that, they're 90 minutes away and home team FC should be less of an issue because it's not like there are loud fans in the stadiums. Yeah, it was. I appreciate a shutout. I think it's terrible we got shut out, as I think John pointed out last week. The Fire beat Cincinnati 3-0, beat them pretty handily, and the Crew they looked listless. They were really content to just pass slowly around the outside. This is one of those, if you're kind of a stats nerd and you go and look at like the passing map for this game, there's basically a U shape where the Crew couldn't do anything within 35 yards of the goal. It was like a urinal shape of failure, basically, where the team was just pissing away all of their passes. There were 29 crosses in this game, and only one of them was successful, and that was a short corner. It was just painful to watch.
Yes, it was really uninspiring, and again, like, I didn't look at the passing of anybody else, but I thought Pedro was having another bad game. And so at one point I looked up his passing map, and it was basically a handful of forward passes, all of which I think, except for maybe like one, were incompleted, and then basically all the rest of his passes were lateral. So I don't want, at risk of seeming like I'm picking on him, like I said, I didn't look at anybody else's, but his were not positive and not inspiring when I did look at those. So if that's anything, he's supposed to be one of our top creative guys, especially in a situation where you've got Zelarayan playing limited minutes. It's just not good enough.
Yeah, Awful actually was very much in the same boat. He seemed pretty slow getting upfield and had very few successful forward passes, including a couple that were under no pressure whatsoever, and they'd go straight to the first Cincinnati defender. So maybe your plan to get him into fashion is something for him to consider, because that was painful to watch. But, I mean, it certainly wasn't just those two. There were 7 shots on goal. 3 of them came in the first 12 minutes, and then that was it for the rest of the first half. They had 2 shots then in the first 6 minutes of the second half, and none at all for the next 25 minutes. I mean, those are huge gaps in a game where just nothing offensive was happening.
Yeah. It felt very much to me at the end of the day like the Crew kind of just beat themselves. Like, Cincinnati could have been literally any collection of 11 human beings with T-shirts placed on the field, and the Crew just kind of passed around and really showed not very little interest in actually like attacking or trying new ways to push forward or penetrate the defense. And they seemed pretty content to just pass around and take the draw, which is weird because one of Caleb Porter's quotes was that he thought that the Crew looked like they were the home team with the way they were playing, and if he thinks that the home team should be taking 0-0 draws away from games, then I'm a bit concerned about his judgment.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm going to throw the next one to Brent because I'm a little curious about Porter's post-game comments. I don't have the actual quotes pulled up, but he basically pointed to 2 things. He criticized Cincinnati for basically pulling 10 players within 35 yards of their own goal. An incredibly deep low block, basically, for all of the game, which he said he'd never seen a team do that before, which I guess means he hasn't watched the last 2 games, because NYCFC and the first time they played Cincinnati, you saw that as well. And he also called out the referee. Presumably not only because of the lack of free kick at the end of the game as time expired, but also a potential no call where Jossie got shoved in the box earlier in the game. How do you feel about the officiating, Brent? And do you think that was the reason, that and or the bunkering was the reason for the result?
I only saw bits and pieces of the game. I was not able to watch it in full.
Okay.
But that being said, I'm not going to put this one on the refereeing, especially for 2 calls that, if I remember correctly, one was definitely late in the game because, as you said, it was as time expired. But the push on Jossie was also fairly late in the game, was it not?
I don't remember. I tried to go back and watch the highlights, and interestingly, it didn't show up in those. So I'm not sure when. I think it was earlier in the game. But yeah, the last one was as time expired, and the ball was probably 45 yards from the goal.
Okay. Well, either way, those 2 missed calls, if that's what you want to sit there and nitpick, are not going to be the reason that a team lost the game, or in this case, drew the game, which feels like a loss. So no, I don't think that's an acceptable excuse from Caleb Porter at this point. As far as Cincinnati basically like bunkering and pulling their entire team to defense, despite the fact that I think I saw somebody tweeted they actually had more offensive players on the field than defensive. They just had them sitting really deep. I mean, look, you've shown yourself to be a good team, a team that has aspirations of winning, and this is the recipe that has been shown to work against you, so you're going to have to figure it the fuck out. You can sit there and complain about it all you want, and sure, it's not fun to watch. It doesn't make for a good soccer game, but it's the recipe that teams have figured out. So, get used to it, figure it out.
Sure, yeah. I mean, good teams will face desperate teams who use this. I mean, this is not uncommon. This happens in every league in the world. You have teams that just sit back and play for a point and maybe a chance to, pull 3 points away on a set piece, a counter, something like that. The Crew had 22 fouls in this game and actually gave Cincinnati a shit ton of good set piece chances. And I don't think those 22 fouls were a case of bad refereeing. It was a case of not great play. It actually wouldn't have shocked me if Cincinnati had managed to win this game based on the way that both teams were playing. So, I mean, the lesson here is fucking do better. Like, you have to figure this out if you want to go somewhere with this season. I will say my favorite thing actually in this game, while it was generally a painful shit show to watch, their goalkeeper, Teton, walking the ball over the end line not once, but 2 times in a row is maybe the most Cincinnati thing I've ever seen in an MLS game. Like the first time there was one play where he caught a ball coming in towards goal, and his momentum carried him towards the end line. And rather than like extending the ball away from his body or like dropping it or anything, he just kind of like strolled out of bounds with it for a corner kick for us. And then on the ensuing kick,
really? I didn't.
He got the ball again. Yes. He got the ball again and walked it out of bounds again.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it should go on his highlight reel for his entire career.
That's so odd. I don't know. Right. It sounds very Cincinnati, though.
Yeah, it was a perfect representation of what they do. Anything else about this game, guys?
No, I don't really have anything else to say. I think Brent kind of nailed it there with the Porter comments. I would have nothing to add to that.
Oh, I guess the other thing was that we had a first choice starting 11 essentially finally for the first time in several weeks.
Our mystery injuries even returned.
Yeah, all 3 of them, and all 3 started. So that was nice. Which then takes us into the second game, which was the Crew playing Philadelphia here in Columbus, which was a much more interesting game with a much better result. It was a 1-0 victory for Columbus. Brent, were you able to watch that game by any chance?
Not in full, but I mean, I watched more. I saw more than just like highlight videos. So it was a decent amount. Yeah, I don't know. I still felt like in this game, there's something about that area between the midfield line and the 18, just about as wide as the 18, that for whatever reason, like, we cannot send a ball into that area, and I don't understand like what that is.
I get it. So basically, sort of transitioning into the attacking third. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just, if you look at like you were talking about it earlier. If you look at the passing maps in that, like the attacking third, to like the middle third, there's just like this huge gap of like where the ball did not go, and it's like right in that dangerous part for Lucas Celerayán, and we can't get the ball in there, and I don't understand why.
What do you think, John? How was the game for you? John.
Oops, sorry, I thought I was muted, and so then when I went to unmute, I was actually muting myself. I thought this was another pretty boring game. It felt like it should have been a bit more exciting, but I don't know. At no point did I feel like I was watching a clash between two of the top teams in the league, which is basically what it was. So, I was shocked with the outcome, but pleasantly surprised. And I think that the struggle to get the ball successfully onto the head and feet of the players that we need to be on, primarily being Lucas and Jossie, does seem to be a continuous concern, like Brent's saying.
That's interesting. I thought this game was a lot more fun to watch. I actually felt like this was two teams that wanted to play legitimate soccer. There was a lot of back and forth. I thought the passing seemed better. I thought the left side of the entire team was playing really well. The combination of Williams and Valenzuela and Mokhtar and Lucas also coming over. I thought actually Josh Williams was managing to unlock the attacking third pretty well. There were a couple of times he put long passes on the ground in a way that sort of sprung the attack. And I'm not unhappy with a 1-0 result in this game, especially given there were a couple of really hairy defensive moments in this game. The Crew got another shutout, but there were a couple times where Philadelphia was just peppering the goal with shots, and every player was in there. Nagby had a goal line save. There were a couple times where just like we put so many bodies in front of the shot they didn't have a chance, and you could kind of see the Philadelphia players getting frustrated because no matter what they did, they couldn't get a ball through.
I think that it was. I'm thrilled with the result, honestly. I mean, I was expecting 4 points from this week, but I didn't think that the 3 would come from Philadelphia. So I'm definitely overjoyed by the fact that we were able to knock off one of the top teams in the league. And I guess it was it was definitely more exciting than Cincinnati, but I don't know. I just personally didn't find myself super amped up by the play. You're right. The defense was a little bit shakier, had some close calls. I think we're very lucky that we won. I think we very easily could have not just drawn but lost. Philly had some very good opportunities. They actually outshot us on the night. So Crew did not a great job at the beginning and not a great job at the end of controlling the game, maintaining possession, dictating the tempo. They controlled in the middle half of the game, but on both of the back and the front ends was where Philly was strongest, and I'm really kind of surprised that they didn't nab a goal at any point.
Yeah, the end of the game was rough. Being then the just the second game back for Salarayan. I guess Porter forgot that he's allowed to do 5 subs because he only used 3, and one of them was somewhere around the 87th minute, I think, where Lucas was just clearly gassed, and I thought it was one of those, you probably should have moved Nagby up there earlier and brought somebody in. Also, speaking of Pedro being terrible against Cincinnati, I thought he was worse in this game. He had a team leading 4 shots in this game. None of them, not one of those shots, were on frame. And 2 of them are still orbiting the Earth at this point. He technically got credit for an assist on the 1 goal in the game, but it was a really poor one-touch assist that Lucas had to reach behind himself to get and put into a useful space. I don't know if it's just his salary is too high for him to sit, but I really don't feel at this point like he's the best option on the wing. And that actually kind of transitions us a little bit to just some overall thoughts on both games, in which we saw Mokhtar and Pedro being the two starting wingers. Historically, Porter has said he likes having one guy who inverts and comes to the middle of the field, and then one guy who's more of a speedy, get behind the defense winger. But he's got two guys who take the more inverted approach with Mokhtar and Pedro. What do you think, Brent? Was it working? Is this a deliberate choice? Is this a change in approach, or what's going on here?
I don't know. It almost feels to me like, several people have talked about Luis Diaz being off to a bit of a rough start. And this almost feels like okay, I'm going to sit you down for a couple games, almost as like a get your shit together type of a deal. I'm not saying that that's necessary or that's what should have been done, but that's kind of what it feels like to me. And I would prefer to not see that continue, because to have both Mokhtar and Santos on the field at the same time, I don't think it's going to be a recipe for success for this team. I'm also interested, we talked a little bit last week about the presence of I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Fatai Alashe. Is that how you say that?
Yep, it is.
And what that meant for Berhalter and Morris, and then lo and behold, Morris isn't even making the 18 anymore, and Alashe is. So there's another roster move that I think would be somewhat head scratching for me.
Yeah, so John, it does look like Nagbe is now the backup 10. That when it's time for Lucas to come out, instead of Pedro being into that spot, what they do is they bring in a defensive midfielder and then push Nagbe up. And it does seem like Alashe is now the first choice for coming into that. So as Brent mentioned, we talked about that a while ago, and this also has an impact on your boy Aiden Morris, who is already having trouble reaching the field. Are you surprised by this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about this new guy. I know he came from a team that is not good.
Cincinnati,
not good, right? Yeah, I mean, they're not good. Was he was he on that team last year?
He was, but he didn't really get a lot of playing time with them. He wasn't seeing the field a lot.
So not being able to get a lot of playing time in a season where the team gave up the most goals in league history is not a good sign. Yeah, I'm not thrilled to see him getting playing time. I have basically no impressions of him, even though he's now, made 2 substitution appearances.
For 24 minutes.
Yeah.
So not a huge amount, but some.
Not a huge amount of time, but a decent amount for as far as substitutions go. And I have no opinion on him. I mean, he's not stood out in a bad or good way, I guess. But like I said, if we're going to be substituting players at that position, especially for these short amount of times, I would really rather it be the younger homegrown guys. I'd like to see some more development towards these players that are going to be with us for the future, for the long term. I mean, we know that they're MLS caliber because they've both already played in games. So, and they've not done, abysmally. If they put in abysmal shifts, I could understand their sudden absence from the field. But the fact that Morris hasn't seen any playing time now since the tournament, and Berhalter is seemingly now also dropped below this new guy, I think is a little concerning to me.
Yeah, so I just looked. Alashe he's played 24 minutes for Columbus so far. He played 25 minutes for Cincinnati. Actually, that was this season. I'm sorry. So he did get into 3 games for Cincinnati and played 25 minutes there. The previous season, he had 434 minutes in 11 appearances. So, and that's 4 starts. So yeah, for a guy who didn't really see the field much with Cincinnati, it's just bizarre that he's becoming the first choice guy. And obviously we're not seeing what's going on in practice. I haven't seen anything from Porter talking about why that's happening. Jacob Myers, if you're listening to this, ask Porter why Alashe is suddenly the first choice guy, because we're curious about it here.
Yeah.
But of course, Jacob Meyer isn't listening to this.
And to build off of Brent's commentary about Diaz, like, I don't think that. I guess Derek Etienne did have an assist. In the game against Chicago? Was that, or he scored, right?
Yeah, he does have a goal, and I think a couple of assists. The beauty of the internet. Let me look here real quick.
Look it up, Darby. Look up those statistics.
Yeah, continue your thought.
Anyways, the lack of usage of Diaz is concerning to me as well. He's not a homegrown guy, but he's very, very young. He's incredibly talented. I mean, he's highly rated, I think, by anyone and everyone that watches this league. He's a player that 100% is up to snuff when it comes to starting in MLS. And he is not the kind of, and that basically classifies him as the kind of guy that I would expect will not be pleased to continue to play a substitute role. And, if that is seemingly what his position is going to be moving forward, I would expect him to seek an out from our roster at some point, be it this offseason or perhaps during the summer of next year. A guy like that's not going to sit around and wait to come off the bench for a long period of time. He's going to be expecting to start. And I think that he's shown that he's dynamic and talented enough to be starting. So I'm looking at the passing distribution for both of the wingers in this game. Really disappointing and uninspiring. Majority of their forward passes from both Pedro Santos and Mokhtar were unsuccessful. A lot of backwards passes by Pedro, I'm noticing. Not as much by Mokhtar, but again, both of these guys with a lot of lateral pass work, a lot of shifting the ball back and forth across the midfield. I think desperately trying to find that in for the offense. So I think something needs to change along the wings. I think Pedro has been bad. I know he got credited with an assist on this goal. I'd have to watch it again to see if it's really worth it, but I'm looking at the map right now, and that is the assist pass is a backwards pass. Not to say that it's not deserving of being an assist, but a lot of the legwork on creating that goal was definitely done by Lucas. So I'm not counting that assist as something that is in the impressive / positive column for Pedro. We just got to see more from these wingers. I think that is a lot of the reason why we're not seeing offensive production.
Yeah, and to your point about the lack of forward passes connecting, in the last 3 games, Jossie Zardes has had 0 shots, 1 shot, and 1 shot. And that's supposed to be your primary guy, the guy who at this point is still leading the team in goals. You've got to feed him the ball in a place where he can take shots, because that's what you pay him for. So if the wingers aren't able to, draw out defenders and create space and get the ball to him in useful positions, then they're not doing their jobs, because they damn sure aren't scoring themselves.
And here to build off of that, just to make sure that I don't think any blame lies with Giassi, and I just want to throw this out there to back it up. I just checked, and he had he has one dribble listed on the chalkboard of stats, and it's a successful dribble, but he had only one dribble listed in this game, which means that it's not a matter of him receiving the ball and losing it or failing to get a shot off. He's just not getting the ball.
Yeah, for sure. He's not getting anywhere near the touches that you expect a target striker to have, and that probably contributes to things. I mean, now that being said, we do still have the best goal differential in the league. but that is much more a function of the defense. At this point, Crew have still only given up 2 goals, which is by miles the best number. The next lowest, FC Dallas has only given up 5 goals, but they've also only played 7 games at this point to the Crew's 9.
Yeah, I think the closest would be Seattle. They've given up 7. They've played 8 games, which is 1 less than us.
Yeah. So, in that sense, you can't argue with the results, but it's going to require, if you're going to maintain this where just the defense is playing lights out, it's really hard to maintain that sort of goals per game allowed average. 2 goals over 9 games is not really sustainable for anyone. So at some point, something's going to have to happen with the offense.
Yeah, I'd love to see Diaz get some more field time. If Etienne has been playing as well as he has been playing well. He hasn't been playing bad. Maybe this is a situation where you give him the start and sub one of these other guys on instead. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you got to try something, switch it up, because I really think that the lack of, positive play from the wings is what's really crippling this team. Again, I just checked the passing and distribution stats for Giassi. He doesn't have a single pass, either forward or backwards, that is within 18 yards of goal. So he's doing a lot of his passing work in, between half field and the 18-yard box, which is not something you want your striker to have to be retreating back up, back towards your own defense to get the ball. He should be able to stick higher and get that service from the wings. He's just not getting it.
And those, playing those younger, faster guys gives you those sorts of opportunities, because it's going to, pull defenses out of shape and give. Giassi is fantastic at making runs and getting into space. But, you have to have those opportunities and take advantage of them. If he's just standing on the back line with, 2 center backs bracketing him and he's standing still, that's a difficult position for anybody to be in, except maybe like a Josie Altidore, who can just, stand there like a fucking brick wall and receive the ball and make something out of it. But yeah, it's so weird. We now have, 3 young wingers. Actually, Ima Boateng is the oldest at 26, who all have that get behind the defense pace, and, they're all on the bench or not even on the bench. So you've instantly taken that speed out of the equation. I get having a change of pace guy come on, but you can have a speed guy come on for a speed guy, even if you want, just to kick things back up.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're playing the 2 more creative, less pacey wingers when we've got Lucas Zelarayan in central midfield, this guy with excellent foot skills, some of which you saw some really, really impressive moments in this game, and just really great vision and passing. I mean, he's theoretically potentially the best number 10 in the league, could easily live up to that billing. I would think you would want one fast, pacey guy back there that he can slip clever balls through too every once in a while. It's just really curious. I looked at Valenzuela and Awful's passing distribution charts as well. They're doing a lot of lateral passing. Also, they get about to the dividing line between the middle and final thirds, and they're passing in centrally a lot, which I assume are passes mostly targeted towards Lucas. So it doesn't look like they're being encouraged a lot to serve balls in from the outside, and even those guys, when they do, it's mostly looking like they're unsuccessful passes. So I don't know if the whole game plan is get the ball upfield and then get it to Lucas and let him figure it out from there. But that's kind of looking like that's what the plan is, and that looks like that's also the only plan. And you can't just have one plan, because if you do and that plan gets shut down, then this is what you end up with. You end up with 0-0 draws against bad teams. You end up with nail-biter 1-0 draws against other good teams. that could easily flip, and it's just not a safe way to play.
Yeah, for sure. And, we do have a small sample size at this point. We don't have a huge number of games to pull from. So I guess whatever phase 2 of this at such time as it comes, plus these next couple games will maybe give us a better sense of what's going on with that. So any other thoughts, Brent?
I'm curious what you guys think. I know he's been given limited minutes, but what you guys think of Fernando Adi coming on in relief of Jossie?
He is a human being who takes up a non-zero amount of space in the universe. He is a target in the sense that he is a physical being you can kick a ball towards. That's all I got.
He's been irrelevant.
Yeah.
Let's just be straightforward with it. Miguel Berry's gone. He's out on loan, which means that Adi and Hamilton are the only options. And at this point, if Adi is going to continue to basically bring nothing to the table, I don't think he's contributed in a meaningful way on any play in his limited minutes. Then again, get Hamilton in there. He's the younger guy. I'm very much of the belief that if someone's not performing, we may as well have a younger person in there who's going to not perform. If they're not going to produce, at least let them be in a position to learn and grow. Like Adi's 29. How many more years are we going to even have him around? Probably not many.
Yeah, honestly, Adi's got no fucking motor whatsoever. Like, he comes in, 5, 10, 15 minutes left in the game, and I don't see him sprint once. I'm not sure if he's capable of a sprint. Maybe, the only time he can go fast is when he's on the highway at 1 o'clock in the morning. But he just, he jogs at best and walks at times where it's like, wait, you should be fresh. Your ass needs to be moving around and making things happen. What are your thoughts on him, Brent?
I pretty much agree with what you guys are saying. He hasn't contributed anything in the limited amount of time that he's had. And to see him, at times walking and or jogging around on the field when you're literally in there because your legs are fresh late in the game and you're supposed to be working against the tired players, you're wasting our time in a roster spot to me.
Yeah, he's got, I just checked it, he's got 87 minutes across 7 appearances, during which time he has only offered up 2 shots in total. I just think that those stats are unacceptable for a fresh forward to have only gotten 2 shots off during 7 substitution appearances. Let's go, start cranking it out. I know height and weight aren't everything here, but he actually is listed on the crew website as weighing a few pounds less than Jossie, but is also 3 inches taller. So maybe some of his problem is that he would prefer and benefit from being more of a target guy. And like we've already stated, we're not providing good service into Jossie, and so that service isn't suddenly magically improving for Adi once he's on the field. And maybe that's the real issue for him. I don't know. I still think that the wingers are the biggest problem at the moment. And again, I would much rather see Hamilton. We're getting pretty consistent and unimpressive performances from some of these guys. Let's start rotating it and just seeing what can happen.
Yeah, and for better or for worse, this year Porter seems much more interested in spelling Jossie, and I don't know if that's because of the condensed schedule, but whereas, in games past and last year, Jossie was going 90 minutes, it seemed like, all the time. As you said, Adi's come in on 7 different occasions, which, we've had, is it 9?
We've only played
so
9
far?
games, so he's been subbed into every one of them but 2.
Yeah. So it clearly seems as though he's the first choice guy, which I find just shocking unless you're a coach who happens to have a particular fondness for a player, rather than, judging based on what's happening on the field.
Well, we've definitely seen no history of that from Caleb Porter.
None whatsoever. But that being said, the team is on top of the East again, and then a lot of people will say you can't argue with those results. So, yeah. Anything else, John?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, let's while we will preview the next episode, as it were, of Hell is Real, we're actually going to talk about it from sort of a more general context, because the team announced this morning, because everything happens on Thursdays, that they are going to allow 1,500 people in the stands for the game on Sunday. They have indicated these will be, quote, self-selected, known and trusted pods, where you buy 2 to 4 tickets for basically, I guess, whoever you trust to not be actively sick. Everybody has to wear masks, and there will be no tailgating during the game. But they are bringing people into the game. There's going to be apparently a Zoom info meeting Friday at noon. If any of you listen to this early on Friday and are interested in checking that out, I think you might have to RSVP. There's also a tutorial video on the crew website where they talk just kind of generally about precautions and stuff. One thing that came courtesy of Jacob Myers today, he spoke to the spokesperson for Columbus Public Health, who has jurisdiction over, obviously, Columbus, which includes, the fairgrounds and Moffray Stadium. Columbus Public Health actually had not recommended fans come to games until there are 2 consecutive level 1/yellow declarations on the Ohio Public Health Advisory System. Currently, Franklin County is in a level 2, which it just achieved within the past week, I believe. So based on that criteria that Columbus Public Health is recommending, there should not be games in Moffray yet. However, the team basically gave them the middle finger, it sounds like. John, what do you think about this situation? I mean, I know we've talked generally, like, we don't tend to be in favor of fans in games, but now that this is real, now that there's some more information, and now that there's a public health department saying, maybe you shouldn't, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is idiotic. I think this is pretty obviously a money-driven decision. Otherwise, there's no reason to be doing it. I think it's really disappointing and depressing that they were given advice by scientific and medical professionals and have opted to ignore that. I don't believe Franklin County has been in a level 1 state since March, let alone have 2 days back-to-back. Case numbers are rising and have been for the last week and will continue to do so as all of the colleges continue to spread their germs around, and all of the elementary and grade schools resume, and those kids spread their germs around. We won't be in a level 2 for very long. I imagine we'll be rising back up to a level 3, at which point crew administrators will look even dumber than they do today.
Yeah, so Brent, you're a big fan of all things Ohio State. You approve of everything they do. It's often been said you're the number one Buckeye boy fan. You think they can do no wrong. And John makes a good point. Universities are in general seeing cases just explode, and Ohio State is not exempt from that. And Ohio State's a significant driver of what happens in Columbus. Do you think this is a good idea? You're geographically distant from us now. Would you go to this game knowing what you know about, like, the state of Columbus, even secondhand?
Man, I'm not sure. That's a tough question. I think for some of the reasons that I alluded to last time, I probably would not. And that being that, like you guys, the majority of my friends, the people that I go to games to hang out with, would not be there. So it's definitely less appealing for me. But that being said, to limit it to 1,500 people in that stadium, I think that if you do it properly, then it can be done safely, in a way that's not really going to lead to a mass spread. But I do find it incredibly disappointing to see the statement that they released this morning, or the tweet or whatever it was, that said, it talked about being in conjunction with public health officials, when in reality you're like going directly against what they advised you. Like, if you want to make that decision, that's fine. It's on you. Make that decision. But at least be honest with people, like, hey, they told us this wasn't a good idea, but we're going to do it anyway. Don't try to make it sound like the public officials or public health people were on board with this decision, and that they gave you the go-ahead. I think that, to me, is probably the most frustrating part of this.
Yeah, that was kind of a disingenuous statement from them, to be sure. Like, I mean, maybe they have talked to a medical professional who says this is fine, but that's not the same as consulting with the local health professionals who have a good holistic sense of what's going on in the community. To your point, they are doing something with ticketing to ensure that people are seated at least 6 feet apart. I assume it has something to do with, like, when you buy your 2 or 4 tickets, it probably blocks out X number of seats surrounding you. But maybe you can get people spread well out enough, but they are still going to the bathrooms. They are still going to the concession stands. They're walking up and down the aisles. To me, it's just not necessary. I know, John mentioned maybe this is a money thing. Do you think they actually will make money with 1,500 people in the stadium? Because I feel like they're going to have to bring in and staff and everything and do a lot of sanitizing. I feel like this is going to lose money for them. Maybe it's playing the long game, hoping to show that we can reopen in several weeks, but I'm also with John in that I think after Labor Day in particular, you get 2 weeks after Labor Day, schools firing up, sporting events kicking in at the local level. I think you're going to see some pretty unfortunate numbers here soon.
Yeah, I've thought about that as well. I don't know if they can make money off it either. I assume they'll be having fairly limited capacity for employees as well. I mean, I'm talking kind of one of those situations where it's like an Open Cup game where only like half or to a third of concession stands are actually open for business, things like that. I would assume that will be the case. For all we know, maybe it's like a situation where it's like concessions are only open in the northeast corner, and that is the only concession stand you can go to, which simultaneously makes sense from a staffing position because you're only serving this small group of people. But then from a safety perspective, it does the exact opposite because it forces anyone and everyone that's interested in concessions into the same space. So
I'm actually not sure that that's the way that's going to be. I saw something released today. I don't remember if it was a tweet or an email or what it was, but it looked like they've basically divided the stadium into like 4 quadrants, and if your tickets are inside this one quadrant, then you can only go to this restroom and this concession stand. You won't have access to the rest of the stadium. Maybe I misunderstood that, but that's the way it looked from that diagram.
Okay, that makes more sense. And I'll say that you could still have very minimal staffing, right? I mean, I worked in restaurants for a very long time, and you obviously take into consideration your, the expected business when you make staffing decisions and schedule employees. So I would assume that they'll know, like, if we're in I'm sure they've been doing this for 25 years. They know how it works. If we're expecting this many people to attend a game, these are the staffing levels for each, position that we need to have filled for that evening. And I suspect that they can just extrapolate that downwards. Very few times they've probably had a crowd of this size, but you can figure it out. And even if it's just, all the concessions are open, but only one register at each one is functioning or something like that. I'm sure they'll have markers on the ground saying 6 feet between people waiting in line, things like that. I don't know if they can make money. I do have suspicions that they are doing this in an attempt to normalize and build a comfort level within the community so that they can ramp up the amount of people in attendance. I think that was the entire point of why they had friends and family at the game last night and why they kept making it they kept making an intentional effort to bring that up and point that out throughout the broadcast. I had an inkling that this was coming. I also have heard from people and reliable sources that the city of Columbus should expect to see things like OSU closing its dorms soon. So that doesn't seem like a good sign for the crew moving forward if things like that are happening. But I would suspect that this is a normalization process so that they can increase attendance in the near future. And if they're willing to take the cut now in the hopes that they can maybe make some money at future games with more people, that seems like a risk that they would be willing to accept.
Sure. And I should say that I did watch the 3-minute video on the website, and they are doing all of the things you would hope and expect. They're going to have the stickers on the ground for distance, only cashless transactions. Every other register is going to be closed. There's separate ordering and pickup areas. In the restrooms, every other urinal and every other sink will be made unavailable. They'll have touchless paper towel dispensers. So within the context of having a game, they are certainly taking steps. It's just, whether in a larger sense it's a good idea. And I think John's onto something with the normalization aspect, that if they can show, that things didn't go to shit, then they can, maybe 1,500 now is 3,000 in a couple of weeks. The problem for me is the lag time. When things start spiking, it can take up to 2 weeks for the numbers to reflect that. And, if you talk the world into opening the stadium up just at the time things are starting to get worse again, then that's not what you're looking for.
Right. And to make no mention of the fact that we have now a fairly consistent track record of even outdoor events ultimately leading to breakouts. I mean, we can track rises in cases to a lot of outdoor events like concerts, things like that. So I don't even think that you can do everything you want to do and everything that needs to be done. At the end of the day, I just don't think that this is something that can be managed outside of, people staying home. Like, we do not need to be attending soccer games right now. I know everybody misses it. I miss it as well. But this is not a necessity of life. And it just seems like an unnecessary risk to be taking at the expense of the public and the fan base, just because, some billionaires are seeing their wallet take a slight hit for the first time in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so speaking of billionaires and their wallets taking a hit for the first time, that's a great transition there, John. Let's talk about the other social issue going on in MLS. Starting off with the strike/boycott, although if we had the soundboard, I would be hitting the fart noise button right now, because that petered out very quickly. Other than the 5 games that were canceled last Wednesday, I think there were no more strike games, no more walkouts or protests or anything. Which, the players, they are in control of their labor. They're allowed to do whatever they want. And if they felt like the message had been sent. I can't second guess them. I was hoping for a more uniform and unified message from the players, but that is their call. So that has quickly gone away. However, we have heard that uber racist pile of garbage Dell Loy Hansen has announced that he is going to sell the team, including they've got a USL team, they've got a women's team. He owns Rio Tinto Stadium, their academy. So there's going to have to be a lot of extraction, but he basically has figured out that it's time for him to go. And MLS, being the brave entity it is, put out a press release saying, yeah, he's going to sell a team. We'd like to thank him for all he did for the league, because they're a bunch of fucking cowards who won't call out racism when they see it. Are you happy with the result, Brent? What do you think?
I'll be happy once he's definitely out of the league. Happy's not really the right word.
Sure.
Because, it's not like anything's really happening to him. He's going to make a shit ton of money off of this.
Are you satisfied that he is essentially not being forced to sell the team, but he has realized he needs to sell the team?
Yes. Yeah, from that perspective, definitely. It's time that people like this they're not associated with this league or any league, really, that you could think of. So, again, if there are others that are like him, it's time for people to speak up, and to really force the hand of the league to deal with this situation.
What do you think, John? Are you satisfied with what's going on?
If he actually gets bought out, yeah, people like that should be forced out of the league. People like that should be forced out of society, frankly, in my opinion. There's no room for racism of any kind in a civilized community, and I don't ascribe to the concept of cancel culture, because no one ever gets canceled. These people all complain and whine about getting canceled, and then they seem to be doing better than ever, and they're on these TV shows as commentators and shit like that. No one gets canceled. There's no cancel culture. But this guy needs to be shamed, and he needs to be bought out, and he's not going to be punished in any way. He's not losing the teams. They're not being taken from him. They're going to be purchased from him. He's going to make out like a bandit, just like Brent said, make a bunch of money. He'll go and reinvest it in some other thing that he thinks he can turn a profit on. So I'm glad that he's going to be gone. I'll hold my breath to make sure that it happens. I'm pretty disappointed by MLS's statement. It's pretty standard, spineless fence riding bullshit. There's really no legitimate reason to be thanking him as you're showing him to the door. But this is pretty par for the course for them. They want to do anything and everything they can to save face and with every audience that they possibly can. So I'm not surprised that they worded it the way that they did. But I would hope that the purchase includes not just the teams, all the teams too, not just MLS. I want to see him lose control of the other teams that he owns, and also I would hope the stadium, because if he still controls and owns the stadium, and RSL is still playing there, then that means he's still making money off the league. And then in that turn of events, I don't believe that what I would like to have seen happen has happened. I think he'd still be benefiting from MLS, which I think at this point he has no right to do.
Yeah. I don't know about the stadium, but I'm pretty sure that the statement either from Dell Loy Hansen or RSL or the league, one of the statements specifically lumped all of the actual team entities together when they talked about selling. Again, I don't know that the stadium was actually thrown in there, but I would hope that it will be.
Yeah, and I guess if there is a silver lining to this, he has indicated, for what it's worth, that he doesn't have interest in selling to anybody who wants to move that team, which I think is important because Salt Lake should not lose their franchise because their owner was a racist dickbag who had to get forced out. So I hope they can find somebody who's interested. I mean, certainly MLS is a valuable commodity these days, and rather than somebody having to buy, an expansion franchise and build a new stadium and build up infrastructure. I mean, if somebody has the money, they can come in here and be ready to go from day one. I mean, there's, of course, been issues with him being more worried about his checkbook than about results on the field. So it's not like you've got an instant contender. But yeah, if somebody has a crap ton of money and wants to get on the MLS boat, this is a better opportunity than trying to have to start from scratch.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently J.J. Watt has indicated that he is interested in being a part of an ownership group. I mean, obviously he would not be able to be like the principal owner, the majority investor. But yeah, so there's definitely been some traction as far as actually getting a group together to make a purchase.
Yeah, I don't know what the billionaire situation is like in Utah, so maybe they would benefit from having an ownership group made up of a number of people, like an LAFC kind of model. Yeah, and I think it's pretty cool when we have people, so at this point, Steve Nash is, part owner in Vancouver. Kevin Durant is part owner in Philly. So getting athletes from other sports and having those tie-ins and connections, I think that's ultimately a good thing for the league. So if J.J. Watt wants to come in and own 1% of the team, I think that's fantastic. It's, nothing but a positive for the sport.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, a big name like that, worst case scenario, brings some extra eyes, if not some investment and some art and some professional sports knowledge. So I'm all about it. J.J. Watt seems like a really super cool dude too. So
yeah, I mean, there certainly could be worse people to have as an owner than J.J. Watt. Yeah, he's super supportive. In fact, I know somebody was shit talking him about their women's team, like, why don't you invest in something that you won't lose money on? And his reply was something along the lines of, why wouldn't I want to invest in something that grows, sports and women's sports very much in particular in this country? There's nothing but upside there. So yeah. I appreciated that.
Women's sports, which his wife is a professional soccer player for the Chicago Red Stars and used to play for the Houston team, which is, I think, how they met. So that person doesn't really know what the fuck they're talking about if they're disparaging him from potentially investing in literally his wife's career. Like,
yeah. Breaking news: asshole on Twitter who shit talks a celebrity doesn't know what they're talking about. All right. So yeah. Why don't we talk about some crew superlatives at this point? This question comes to us it comes from me, because I got bored the other day and came up with like a half dozen things, most of which were garbage. But the question this week, lads, which crew player would you choose to be the next James Bond? There's a Bond movie, I think, coming out here pretty soon. It's still a Daniel Craig flick. Once upon a time, there were rumors of Idris Elba taking over, but I don't know if that's gone anywhere. But this is about our lads in yellow. So we'll say the current roster, although if you have a strong feeling about a former player, we'll allow that. What player do you think you would choose to be the next James Bond? I don't know. Do either of you particularly want to go first?
I'll go.
Okay.
I think mine seems pretty obvious here. Josh Williams. He's got the looks. we've all seen him drink, so we know he can put down the alcohol, which obviously is a James Bond mainstay. There's always a few scenes of him guzzling cocktails in those films. And he's getting up there in age, and I think all these Bonds seem to have a little bit of that older, distinguished, gentlemanly appeal to them. They're not all necessarily 20-year-old young buck lads, which is a lot of the rest of our roster. So I think Josh has all the makings of it, and of course Josh looks great in a suit, which is basically his only wardrobe as James Bond. So
I like it. One vote for Josh Williams. Brent, what do you think? Who's your guy?
Well, it was going to be Josh Williams, but for the sake of the podcast, I'll pick somebody else. I'm actually going to go a different direction. I'm not going to pick a player. I think Caleb Porter would fill a James Bond role pretty damn well. I don't know.
Like as James Bond or as one of the villains?
Right. I can picture him like petting a white cat as he, "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die, okay?"
You could go either way with that, but there's just something about the way he carries himself that has like that air of like sophistication and superiority that I think you have to have for James Bond. So I can see him fitting into that role pretty well.
All right. Well, I mean, you broke the rules and you gave a terrible answer, but I suppose we'll allow it. So as I was thinking about this, my first thought actually was Jonathan Mensah. I mean, he's tall. He's clearly a very athletic guy. Like, I would totally believe him in the action scenes. And then John, like, you pointed out the drinking factor, and I'm not sure if Mensah's much of a drinker. Like, I think if he sipped a martini, like, I don't know if I'm buying what he's selling there. He's too nice a guy. So then I thought...
Yeah, I feel like he'd try to talk the bad guys out of their plans instead of just killing them. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd be like, come be a good guy. Don't be a villain. Villains are bad. Let's go build a highway with our bare hands. Let's do that instead. Yeah. I think it would be fun to have Chris Cadden bring that thick-ass Scottish accent to the role. He's a good-looking dude. But having heard him talk, I want to watch, 90 or 100 minutes of him delivering suave lines and like the leading lady looking at him and going, "What? What did you say?" So yeah, I think Cadden's my boy here. Sean Connery, Scotsman, was a fantastic Bond. So yeah. I think Cadden can definitely bring something to the role.
Not the first Scot to don the mantle. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking about it while you were telling us about Chris, and I think that if Porter was going to be in the Bond universe, I think he'd have to be a villain, and I think he'd be that villain who had like the bullet in his brain that made it so he couldn't smell or taste or feel pain or anything. I don't remember what the character's name was, but it was from one of the...
it was Renard. He was the fox. Yeah.
That's right, yes. It was from The World Is Not Enough, I believe. One of the 90s ones.
Yeah. Yeah, the Pierce Brosnan era, I think, still, for those.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, there you have it. If you out in Twitter land have any thoughts about which player should be the next James Bond, let us know. Yeah. Okay, so shall we award some man balls? It's that point in the evening where we take out our 2 balls and we give them to the people who deserve them the most over the course of the past week. Brent, would you like to go first?
Sure. First man ball of the week is going to go to Aloy Room, coming back from injury and getting 2 consecutive clean sheets. The dude's he's a fantastic keeper, and it's fun to watch him play, even if it's not always fun to watch the rest of the team play. Second man ball of the week is going to go out to a guy who just celebrated a birthday. That's right. Happy birthday, 2K3, Kai Kamara, legend of the Columbus Crew. You get a man ball this week.
John,
why is his name K3? Is his middle name something with a K?
It's 2K3. 23 is his number, and then his initial is K.
Oh, you said K3.
John, I'm going to go ahead and mute
2K3.
Brent right now. Yeah, Brent, you're no longer talking. Nobody can hear you, so let's go ahead and talk about things. Yeah, this is the part where Brent doesn't get to talk, and we can't hear what he has to say, and there's nothing he can do about it. He's out there. He's in Muskogee, in the Oklahomaville, and he doesn't get to talk anymore. Yeah, I'm in charge of the Discords, baby, and there's nothing you can do about it. You definitely can't talk right now.
Darby, don't make me take your power away again.
Brent, are you there, Brent?
I think he was just sitting there through your bullshit.
Yeah, he didn't even try.
He absolutely was just sitting there through the bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. I checked, and I was like, Darby did not mute him. So
No, I definitely muted him. He was muted. There was no sound coming from Brent whatsoever, and nobody can prove otherwise. All right.
God.
Let me go next on the man balls. I don't want to always be the one to go last. I'll give John the chance to close this out.
Okay.
My first man ball is going to go to the ever handsome and ever fantastic Josh Williams. This is basic. I mean, we should call these the Josh Williams Memorial man balls because he's just deserving of them. Pretty much
dead?
Every
Why
time.
Is it a memorial?
Hashtag rest, John. No, he's very much alive. He played a great game. I was seriously impressed with his performance against Philadelphia. I mean, he's got the complete game right now. He's doing everything you want from a starting center back, and he started this season, knowing that he was third choice at best. He's just doing a hell of a job. The guy he's not getting any older. He's not getting any slower. He's essentially immortal. My second man ball is I'm going to give it to Nagby. The guy is playing great soccer. He had a fantastic goal line save during this game. But the thing that earned it for me this week, there was a play in the game that I literally stopped the DVR and rewound it, and I made Kristen watch like 3 times because he had the ball. And he was being pressed by one of the attacking players. And he just very slowly and casually was dribbling away, using his body to shield a much larger guy from the ball and essentially just toying with him. Like, just, come with me. I'm going to go where I'm going to go, and there is literally nothing you can do to stop me. But I'm also not going to sprint away. I'm going to force you to just stand behind me like you're waiting impatiently in line, and then I'm going to pass the ball. And he is just so damn hard to dispossess, and I think that adds something to the game in the midfield that's been lacking for a while. So that's my second one. Darlington Nagby, well done. You make other players look bad, and I'm very much here for it.
I think I saw or heard a stat, and I can't remember if this was going into the game yesterday or coming out of it or what, but I think what it said was that Nagby had only made 4 incomplete passes all season, which is insane.
That wouldn't shock me.
I think that may have been something Doran said going into the game, just talking about his strength in the midfield this year. But, God, it's insane what he's been doing for us this year, and I got to wonder with all of the things happening down in Atlanta how dumb and upset they all are that he was allowed to depart their team. But yeah, with that said, my man balls, one of them is going to go to Lucas, kind of for a very similar reason as Nagby. I think he's brought something to the midfield that we maybe haven't seen except from Higuain in his more early years. Just that consistent creativity, both with the ball at his feet and also when making passes and distributing. There was a really impressive moment where he basically dribbled through 3 or 4 defenders that had made a couple of them made some really physical tackles on him, and it was just he just refused to go down, and he just held onto the ball and got past them, and I don't remember what ultimately ended up happening, but it's just runs like that I think we really need to see a lot more of, and which we've really been lacking. I mean, he took 2 or 3 hits that, like, if Pedro even just thought about getting those hits, he'd fall on the ground, let alone actually experiencing them. So, it was really refreshing to see that.
Yeah, that dribble. I think he even got, like, somebody managed a toe poke on the ball, and he, like, muscled it back and continued to possess and dribble around guys. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's great to see that from a crew player, because I think that's not necessarily something we've had as far as my memory serves at this moment. I mean, I can't recall anyone that I would say was just like a really exceptional, like top class, world class style dribbler. And it's just like, that's some of the most fun play for me as a viewer. So it's nice to see that. I know that was the thing that excited me most when I was watching his highlight reels when we were talking about signing him and stuff. So I hope to see a lot more of that coming up. And then my man ball number 2 is just going to go to the entire defense. It feels bad giving it to anyone in specific, because they've all been rotating and they've all been doing a great job, and they're all on pace to have a like record-setting historical defensive season. So I think they all deserve it in equal measure. So I'm just going to split it between anybody and everybody that stepped into the backfield for us.
All right, I like it. Yeah, the defense has just been lights out. So you're not wrong if you're giving it to them as a group, for sure. Yeah,
it's a very, 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 very different season if the defense isn't playing the way that it's playing.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, what do you say we preview yet another fucking game against Cincinnati? Because we definitely haven't had enough of those so far. This Sunday, Crew will be playing at home, as we mentioned, with some number of fans in the stadium against the fighting. Well, I don't know if you can even call them the fighting Fusslads at this point. The bunkering Fusslads of FC Cincinnati.
More like the fussy Fusslads.
The fussy Fusslads of fighting Fussville, who most recently yesterday had another scintillating 0-0 tie against Chicago down in Cincinnati. I think I saw somebody on Twitter be like, "Oh, we finally got to see Jopstom's system at play," and I'm like, "Oh, in a 0-0 tie, you're excited about that? Okay, cool." I mean, I don't know what there is to say at this point that we haven't said in previous episodes. This is a game that you think Columbus should win easily and significantly. At home with a little bit of crowd noise behind them, maybe they'll have more motivation, but this has to be a game, I think, where Columbus starts figuring out how to break this. And I think there's video out there, including the first game against Cincinnati in the tournament, where you can see a way to beat them. I think you beat them on quick transitions. I think you beat them on set pieces. If you calmly pass the ball around the field, you're going to have another 0-0 tie or potentially even a 1-0 loss. So I think Columbus has to figure the bunker out in this game if they're going to be successful moving forward. It feels weird to say that, but if they don't have a convincing win against this garbage team in this situation, that's a sign of a real problem, because other teams are going to start doing this and rely on the Crew to beat them, and they haven't yet shown consistently that they can do that. Brent, what are your thoughts on the game?
Pretty much what you just said. I mean, we've already said it in this episode. Like, these games against Cincinnati are points that you have to take if you want to be successful this season. I know some people are talking about supporter shield, and I mean, there's no reason to not try for that if you're in a position to. But if you want to come anywhere close to that, you have to take these easy points. So if you have another disappointing game like the last one, where you just seem uninterested in, playing the game of soccer at even a mediocre level, then there's bigger issues that need to be addressed.
Yeah, for sure. John, what do you think? What are you looking for in this game, other than not playing like ass?
I mean, I'm looking for the same things that I was looking for when we played them earlier this week. I think that, there's no excuse for the score line from this past weekend. Chicago, like we've stated multiple times, beat them 3-0. They also played them in Nippert during that game. So you can certainly go on the road to Cincinnati and get 3 points off of them. Now, whether they were playing the same bunker style against Chicago, I don't know for certain. They're not a very talented roster, and while no one is obviously like excited or wanting to play bunker soccer for an entire season, when you're desperate for points, you do things that you may not, normally do. So they're going to be here. They're going to be on our turf. This is probably, I would assume, the last time we'll play them this season. The schedule after this phase 1 is certainly going to get more difficult. So the most points we can get now, the better off we'll be down the road, because we'll have played Chicago and Cincinnati, 2 of the easier teams in the league, but especially also in our conference. So we really got to take maximum points off these easier opponents.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, well, we'll do some score predictions here in a second. But first, gentlemen, before we get to predicting what's going to happen on Sunday, let's circle back and revisit our predictions from the last 2 games.
We could probably just go ahead and jump straight to the...
No, I think it's important. In the interest of serving our audience, who tune in entirely for the score predictions, as you know.
Well, last week, Darby, you had stated that you didn't want to do that, so I'm just trying to follow up with what your wishes were.
I've really thought about it. I've given it a lot of consideration. I did some meditation, and I've decided that this is an important thing, so we should go ahead and do it. So first, let's talk about the last time we played the FC Cincinnati's. John, you predicted a 3-1 victory. You were pretty optimistic about our scoring and thought they'd get one. That was very, very wrong. And you get no points because that was a 0-0 shit show tie that was disappointing to all of humanity. Brent Miller, everybody's favorite naked bottom bucket boy. You were somewhat less optimistic, but you still said a 2-0 victory. You got the 0 part right, and for that I congratulate you. However, everything else was completely wrong, and I award you no points.
So that's 2 points, right?
No,
for getting half the score.
That is 0 points because that is not how any of this works. Darby Schnarfus, you predicted 2-0, 0 points. Sorry. Moving on quickly to the game against Philadelphia. John Zadar, you felt
Wait, can you go back? What was that last part? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I don't even know what you're talking about, Brent. John, against Philadelphia, you knew this would be a big test. You thought it would be a 1-1 tie. That was not a correct prediction. It was a 1-0 victory. 0 points. God mercy soul. Brent Miller, you copied John like you pretty much always do these days.
That was definitely backwards because I predicted first last week.
There's no record. There's no way of knowing who predicted first. Anyway, you were wrong. No points. Darby Schnarfitz. Oh my God. If ever somebody were to predict a 1-0 scoreline, it would be.
Oh man, Darby is server muted, it appears. That's a real shame. You hate to see that actually happening. Brent, I think that we both predicted that we would get 4 points from this week, and we did get 4 points.
You're absolutely right about that, John, so I think we should just go ahead and award ourselves 10 points each.
That seems actually pretty
John,
generous. Yeah,
let me just interrupt you right there. How dare you, sir?
It took Darby a long time to figure out how to mute himself.
It took me a non-zero amount of time to realize that I could do that, yes. But in that time, I really savored my prediction, and I also savored the 15 points that I have been awarded for being correct in that prediction. So, to summarize...
Your first and your last.
Literally not the first. Because, as the standings will show, tied for a very distant third place.
Well,
One of the
Darby,
most distant
before you
third
do that, I think you might have missed the part while you were trying to figure out how to unmute yourself, where John and I are actually going to get 10 points each because we predicted the correct number of points from this slate of games.
That's true. We did decide that, yes.
Yeah, that's not how any of this works.
We need to factor those in, which actually makes second place a very close second place.
Nope. This is not how any of this works. We have a system. There's a system in place. There are rules. You cannot just make up the rules as you go.
Darby,
That's not what this podcast is
you
about.
writing underneath there the extra points for the correct point total on the week.
That's weird because it says your name, John Zadar, as those words are being typed in the document. I don't know. Yeah, no,
it doesn't.
For sure, literally does.
I want you to know, Drebs, it's 2-3 here. You're being outvoted on this. So while you say we have a system in place, John and I have voted to change the system for the week.
Brent, losers get no votes, winners get sprinkles, and only one person is getting sprinkles this week, and that is me. I'm sorry, both of you are tied with 20 points in dead last place, while I, Darby Schnarfus, am in first place with 40 points. Oh yeah. Salon MX. Do that thing where you do the claps, and somebody plays some weird 70s music, and then Morgan yells about shitting on kids' chests, and I'm in first place, guys. What do you think about that? Do you like that? Are you happy about it? I'm happy about it.
I'm thinking about shitting on your chest.
I also don't think you understand how math works. When you take John and my 20 points and then you add the 10 points, that actually equals 30. So we're only 10 points behind you.
That's great. That's actually a really good point. Math is hard for him. He's old.
That's not how any of this works. John, I'd like to go ahead and take 10 points away from both of you for being dirty shitbags.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and not allow that. We're going to go ahead and not allow that.
Yeah, I'm going to vote against that one, too. So that one's vetoed.
That's yet another thing you've been voted against on. So.
God. Who made this bullshit a democracy anyway? I thought this was like the Electoral College of podcasts.
That's where you're wrong, my friend.
All right. Well, anyway, regardless of how far I'm ahead of you in the standings, let's talk about score predictions for this week. What have you got for a final score in this game, John?
Man, I'm going to stick with it because I really think that this is the score line that it should have been last week. I'm going to go with 3-1. I still believe in the defense, but I think that we saw against Philly that there is a chance for some sloppy play. Everyone is fallible. They're all humans. The shutout streak will end at some point, and I think, why not now? But I still think that Cincinnati's a bad team and that we should absolutely beat them, and we should absolutely do so by multiple goals. So, I'm going to stick with my 3-1 from the previous game.
All right, 3-1 it is. Brent, what have you got for a score line?
Yeah, I think they're going to come out and absolutely try to rectify that last embarrassment against Cincinnati. So I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here with a bold prediction of 4-0 Crew.
4-0 Crew. Well, we thank you in advance for your decision not to take 15 points in the standings next week. But your 4-0 prediction is duly noted. This is a team that in theory can absolutely score 3 or 4 goals a game. But it also feels like sometimes they're playing to the level of the competition they're facing. I think the Crew win this, but I'm going to predict a 2-1. I think Cincinnati probably sneaks one in on a set piece or on a break or something. 2-1 for me. All right. Let's see, point number 9, about extra points for the correct point total on the week. We'll go ahead and delete that. I don't know how that got in there. All right.
You typed it there, Darby.
No, I definitely did not. Either you guys got anything else?
It had
this
your
week?
name on the Google Doc, so I don't know why you're trying to pretend like you did not type it there.
That's true.
All I know is it's gone now, and that's the only thing that matters. So Brent Miller's coming back to town. Everybody watch out for that. When are you going to be in town, Brent?
It'll be closer to the late middle of the month, probably around like the 17th, 18th of September.
Oh, that's nobody cares that far ahead. We'll probably all be dead by then. All right. You got anything else,
You
John?
definitely will.
Oh, well, for sure.
No, I'm good. I'm excited for probably our last Hell is Real game this season. Yeah, I think this is potentially one of the last big matchups for us. So since we don't know who we're going to be facing for the rest of the season. So get your hype in now. Hopefully everybody's able to watch it and enjoy it. I know I've been seeing a lot of people struggling with blackouts and nonsense like that online. I won't dive into the ridiculousness of making it difficult for your fans to watch games during a global pandemic, but maybe another show we can do that. But
yeah. If if you're going to the game, if you make that decision, please be safe. Please follow all the rules. Do everything you can to keep yourself and other crew fans safe and healthy. If you're getting blacked out, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, and with you bringing that up, if you are listening and you do go to the game, get in touch with us because I would love to chat with you about the experience.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting thing to talk about for sure.
Yeah.
And if you're getting blacked out, I did see something. So a lot of people know about using VPNs. Another thing I saw online is that even if you're using a VPN and you're using your phone as your device, you normally have to have your location turned on to access ESPN Plus, which will then ruin things. Mm-hmm. So I saw indications that you should probably use a laptop or something if at all possible for your streaming, because then you don't have to worry about location in that context. So something to think about out there if you're being unfairly blacked out from a game that you're not able to attend. Yeah. Oh, I guess as one other thing, we can tease that I believe we're going to be having a special guest next week. We don't need to talk about who it is.
Well, that would defeat the purpose of it being a surprise and a tease, Darby, if you tell them exactly what it is. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll have a special guest next week. We might have some interesting formatting things going on. Who knows? I guess you'll have to tune in to find out.
Yep. Should be a fun week all around.
Yeah. All right. Well, until then, I guess maybe we should do that stupid thing where we whisper and nobody understands what we're saying. Okay. We'll do that. Okay. Yeah. All right. Are you ready, Brent? Are you excited? Are you stoked? Are you here for it?
No.
Oh, excellent. All right. And all of Lord Guillermo's people said, "Don't let your Corona." Am I allowed to turn the thing off, or did you still? I think. Let's see.
No, you turned it on. Turn it on.
That's what she said.